Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're looking at a first submission by Liz of her horse Ellie. Ellie is a 9-year-old Lipizzanner mare, and she started training the horse and trying to work up into collection and found the horse became sour and resistive, which is what we see quite often, and has now backed up and begun to work the horse more correctly, and hopefully she'll be able to gain the strength to actually get the horse into collection later on in time. But I wanted to say how nicely this is looking, just starting off right here. This is a nice swinging walk for this horse. It could be a little deeper throughout, but you are getting some really good work out of this horse. There's some moments when you really get her into a long, nice swinging frame. But where you are right now is really not bad at all, and quite good, as a matter of fact. She's working pretty solidly over her top line, has a nice rhythm in the walk. That's a good leg yield that you just did there. And once again, remember that in order to collect, the collection is something the horses have to be developed into. That is, they must be completely developed over their top lines and have gone through the change of the withers pulling up through the shoulders and good strong backs before they're able to do real collection. Real collection means the lowering of the three joints of the hind legs. So once the horse is well engaged in working gaits, the horse can ultimately learn to move with its three joints of the hind legs like a person standing and bending your knees where they're more coiled. But they can only do that if the correct work has been done beforehand, before you start asking. And collection is a process of developing muscles, like teaching yourself to pick up a 500-pound weight. You might be able to do it over time, but if you stop doing it and you don't work out, you will lose that ability. Well, horses are the same way. Collection is not a trick that you teach and then the horse can do it. It's depending on the horse's level of conditioning and the maintenance of those muscles. Nor can they stay in collection for extended periods of time, you know. That's what's so difficult. Even to do a 5 or 6 minute dressage test and stay in collection takes a long time. So just know that, but you're very much on the right track. You've discovered the secret, which is getting the horse working over its back, and don't try to force it. And notice how all of a sudden your horse has come back to being a beautiful work, and there's not resistance and all of that, and not sore. So that's the first thing that should tell people, but you were right to look elsewhere, and you did. So great job on you. So everything I'm seeing here is the shoulder in right there was just a little bit, I don't think she's quite ready for that. I do a little more leg yielding. When you got into the shoulder in, she kind of slowed down and didn't really bend, and it wasn't a whole lot of value. So I do a lot of leg yields and then come back to the shoulder in. Once again, just calling it a little more of a shoulder 4, so you bring the shoulders off the rail a little bit and do it that way. But remember, the back and the rhythm guide everything we do. So if you feel like you lose the horse's back or you begin to lose the rhythm, it tells you right away you're in an exercise the horse isn't physically capable of doing, especially if they become resistive to the whole idea. But what you're doing here is very good. I love how you're letting the reins out and she's stretching. There's one moment in this tape where you really get her long and stretch, and that's really good. And really where she needs to work for a little bit longer, like quite a bit deeper than you have her here even yet. What you're doing here is really good, though, and will lead to the right things. I'm just saying you need to get a little bit deeper. You can see in silhouette when she comes by how there's a dip behind the saddle. Well, that should tell you right away the horse would be incapable of real collection, because any horse that's back is in that condition, whose back has dropped a little bit, there's no way they're going to be able to correctly collect, as opposed to shortening. A lot of people today think that collection is shortening the horse's gaits and getting them to snap their legs up. That's what a saddlebred or Tennessee Walker does. That has nothing to do with dressage. So really great work here. Like the walk, I like how rhythm it is most of the time. Once again, it could get a little bit longer, but this is really good. This is a really great start that you've done here. I just like to see her working a little bit lower through the head and neck a little bit more, and so you can make that walk a little bit more active. And you'll find the lower she gets, the longer that stride will be, and that's what we want. We want to start out with big gaits, you know, and the biggest natural gaits. Now, I'm talking about an extended gaits. I'm talking about just the horse's natural gait. And we want to work from that, keeping those gaits as big as possible, so when we do collect, then we get real brilliance out of the horse. But once again, this is really good. Your position looks good. I'm not seeing any problem with there. Of course, you have the big coat on, so it's hard for me to see exactly what your back is doing, but I'm not seeing any big problems there. You look like you have the right idea. Like so many people, you know, you have a good position, but never learned what to do with it. So that's what you're going to learn now. Position is just the start. But this is really good walk. Now that was a much better shoulder in that time, coming down that long side. Now that was a much more useful one. Because remember, if you lose the horse's back, and then secondly, which you'll always feel the horse is losing the rhythm. Now certainly you can get a horse all jacked up, as we see so many horses do today, where they have a rhythm but in total tension. Well, that's not the idea at all. The horse must be impulsed and be relaxed. Impulsion, for people to understand, impulsion is an expression of physical condition. In other words, a desire to move on the part of the horse. It's like a human being that's in really great shape and you just feel like getting out and going for a run. Well, a horse that's correctly trained feels the same way, and they don't resist this work. Once again, really good shoulder in here now on this side. Now this is much better than what you did before, so great job. So once again, I'd say that what you're doing is appropriate. As long as you can get that good a shoulder in, it's good to go. But if you find that you're getting the shoulder in and all of a sudden you're just sort of creeping around the ring and the horse is barely moving, well, in those cases you need to just get the horse longer, swinging, get it more active again. Remember, because the activity going somewhere is not important, is what's important, not going sideways. We only do the lateral work as a way of helping us get the horse up through the back. That's what it's for. It's not because we want to go sideways particularly, except for those few instances that you might want to go sideways to a gate or something to open it. But you know, the real practicality of the lateral work is the ability to get the horse over its back, because every time you do lateral work, the horse steps a little deeper under its body if it's done correctly, and you feel a lifting up under your inside seat bone if it's done correctly. And the horse is actually reaching through enough. But all this is really, really good work. I love how unresistive the horse is, just walking along. And just to point out again, when you see the horse in silhouette, this horse's flanks will come in quite a bit more as you develop this horse more. You know, when you see the horses, they kind of, you know, almost look like they're slightly pregnant. That is, they're like bulging out to their flanks. That tells you the horse is not working up to its back as well as you'd like it to do, or developed enough. And another good leg yield there. I like how the rhythm, you've got the shoulder leading. That's correct. Very, very nice indeed. That's all good. Exactly how it should be done. Once again, I'd like to see you doing all this stuff just with him, even a little bit, with her rather, even in a little bit longer frame, stretched a little deeper into the contact. But you're really getting there, and you're going to have this horse going wonderfully in a very short period of time, and then she will develop, and you will be able to get actual collection. Once again, to get an idea of what real collection looks like, I highly suggest that you take a look at Charlotte Desjardins on her horse. And there's a horse that's doing it perfectly, maintaining collection throughout all three gates, which once you understand what it really is and you start watching, you know, these world championships and all these kind of things, and you'll see how many horses at that level, how few horses at that level actually maintain collection, or even are actually collected at all, or are not tense. You know, once again, tension, just like a human athlete, you could never perform if you were absolutely stiff as a board tense. Well, a horse can't either. And it certainly is never going to give you brilliance, you know, real brilliance, not the phony stuff that we see at horse shows that, you know, people who know nothing about horses are impressed by seeing, you know, the rider who has the horse all jacked up, you know, like going to an Arab show and we see all these people running around with their heads in the air and the horses are excited as they can possibly get them, you know, and we see how miserable the horses are if they'd only look a little bit closer. The horse that's tense is not happy. But this one is not tense at all, and you're doing a wonderful job with it. I like how you just didn't make a big deal of that upwards transition. You didn't try to hold her in the frame. You just sent her forward and then adjust it. And that's what we want to do. Until we get the horse really stretching into the contact and really consistent, we can't expect the horse to be perfect between the gates. I see so many people get hung up on that. You know, they don't even have the horse on the bridle to start with, and they're worried about what it's going to do when they trot. Well, don't worry about it. Just send them forward as you did. This is really good, and once again, a pretty nice working trot here. She could get longer and lower. Once again, you're going to see this horse doesn't really track up much. You see right there, she's barely tracking up in the tracks of the front feet. You know, she's not moving through her back as much as she will in the future if you keep doing this work. So once again, just like in the walk, I'd like to see a little bit longer frame. This isn't terrible. She could just get even longer in the stretch, like there. You're starting to get there. That's better. And look already, see, when longer she gets through the neck, and rounder, the more you feel that bounce underneath you, the thrust, the horse pushing off the ground, and that's what we want. You must have thrust. So thrust means the degree the horse pushes you up and forward. When it's correct, it's like you feel a wave coming up to you. Really nice leg yield there. That was really good. Once again, all I'd want to see is the horse working a little bit longer and a little bit lower through the neck. But you know, this is not bad at all. She's connecting pretty nicely there. You see how she shortened a little bit on that side, then you send her forward again. That's all good. I love how nice and light your reins are. And once again, even at this level, if you're riding with your reins a little wide, that's perfectly all right. Remember, riding like this is schooling riding, just like anything else, you know. We should go to horse shows to show the level that we've perfected, you know. But when we're schooling, we have to do all kinds of things. And the idea of having your reins a little wider at first with these horses we're trying to get to stretch is just the idea. Is kind of you can use it like an accordion so you can keep contact. Now that was a nice lengthening there. That's more like where I'd like her working trot to be there. Now that's a better trot right there. That's more like where you want to sustain it. I think what you think you're doing there is lengthening. That's good, but we would want more of that trot all the time, that you just did that long side. And as soon as she slowed up, then her head kind of came up. So she needs a little to be sent through a little more, the way you did on that long side, and the way you're now doing there a little bit there. Now that's more like what we want all the time, right there. You see how she's starting to track up into the tracks of the front feet, and she immediately starts to soften a little more. So finding that optimal point that the horse can work, that's so important. And there, as you can see, she gets a little hollow, but not bad. She pretty much came back into it for you there when she went around the corner there. Still here, we'd like her to work a little bit deeper, but this is a better, more active trot that you have to here. This is more like what we want all the time. And then you'll lengthen from that, so to speak. There, good. I like how she went through that corner. And I love how you're doing the exercises correctly, in that you're sticking to exercise the horse can do. You're not stopping all the time. Because what we want our workout to flow forward, not be constantly stopping horses. When you see people who are constantly stopping and reining back, or doing this thing of twisting the neck from side to side, those are people that are trying to get the horse to collect, but they don't understand what collection actually is, and all they're really getting the horse to do is slow down, and that's not what we want. When the horse collects, yes, it slows down, but the footfalls remain the same. So if we start off with little tiny shortened footsteps and think that's collection, we're not going to get very far. And what we're going to end up with, so many horses that today are getting injected at such a young age and these kind of things, because you've got to remember, while correct dressage is the best thing there is for the horse in terms of its longevity, bad dressage is the worst thing you could do. You'd be much better off just leaving a horse in a standing martingale, never touching its mouth and letting it go however it wants to, than trying to force a horse down onto the bridle. So there's nothing worse for horses. Is why we see so many horses, being retired at such a young age these days, because when you work in tension or you work hollow, the joints are constantly being damaged, because the horse cannot work correctly until it's over its back. It cannot absorb the shock of movement unless it's over its back in the soft tissue. Otherwise, the horse is hollow. It's taking all the shock of movement into the hard tissue of the joints. It's again why we see so many people injecting their horses these days. And it's almost a pity that these injections have been invented, because they're letting a lot of people put band-aids on their training and continually wear out their horses before they get there. Good walk. I like how you came back to the walk, and this is a good thing to do. Just intersperse some walk in between your trot work and come back and be sure to keep trying to get her stretched all the way out. And of course, the rule of thumb would be that you don't want to do any gait. For instance, if you can't get the horse over its back in the walk, there's absolutely no point in trotting whatsoever, because all you're going to do is damage the horse's joints. But that was really good. She got a little deeper in swinging. But this horse, at the level you're going, even though you're not getting her stretched down as far as you will in the future, when you get her right, she's working over her back enough that this is good work, and will help the horse, and the horse will start to develop. Not bad at all here. Once again, not quite. There you go. Now that's where I want it, right about like that. That's pretty optimal right there for her in terms of movement. We still want to get her to stretch her neck down just a little bit more, but that's really not bad at all. I mean, it's sufficient in that she's getting over her back. Good active rhythm there. You see how she just slowed a little bit there? That's getting a little too slow. You might try going even a little less deep into your corners. The horse, remember that a corner should be a quarter of the smallest circle rather that you're doing with the horse. So in other words, a horse at this level, a 20-meter circle is about the smallest circle you're going to be able to maintain the position on. So your corner should be pretty much a quarter of a 20-meter circle. Now that was much better that time. Your corner was a little wider, and you were able to keep the rhythm of it. But if you go into the corner, I hear so many dressage trainers, they say, drive them into the corner, drive them into the corner. Well, and then they get in there, then they yank them around with their inside rein and lose the rhythm. That has no value at all. The exercise only has value if it keeps this relaxed rhythm and the horse stays over its back. Again, good rhythm here. Just in everything, I just like to see her a little bit deeper. But for just beginning this work, you're doing wonderfully, and I think you've already experienced the benefits of correct work. We must all get out of this idea. So many people in America grow up with what I call the rent string mentality. I was that kid who, was at the schooling barn, when I was in college, and I was the one who got put on every horse that nobody could get over a fence, and the trainer would scream at me to beat the horse up until it went over. I went home at night and felt sick to my stomach every day, which is why I quit working with that trainer and started looking elsewhere for another way to do this. And since I did, my riding is very happy, and I enjoy everything I do. My horses are happy. I have very few visits to the veterinarians, and I get to really enjoy riding rather than spending time with my veterinarian, as so many people do today. Once again, this walk here is a little bit hollow here. She needs to get a little bit longer in that. And once again, just when I see it in silhouette, and look for yourself, the little dip that's behind the saddle there in her back. We want to fill all that up. And you can see from this angle right here, too, how she's still a little distended through the belly, through the flanks there. And as she comes around that corner, you can clearly see in silhouette there the dip behind the horse's back. So if the horse has that, and once again, if you didn't correct that, this is what ultimately leads to kissing spine and damage to all the joints in the horse's legs. So get this taken care of, and then you'll be able to collect with this horse with no problem. She's built for it. She just hasn't been trained for it yet. But you're on the right track now. So again, same thing here. I'd like that walk just longer through the neck. And once again, even if you can't get her all the way there, you're better off just letting go a little bit, which you've been doing wonderfully, and you're not trying to force the horse into a frame. So that's really, really good. I hope that you are influencing some of the riders around you when they see how beautifully your horse will start going without all the tension. You know, I see it all the time. People ask me about this, and they're riding at some barn where the trainers, and you know, of course, you got to remember that if you're right, a lot of the trainers are wrong. So they can't stand to be wrong because their livelihoods depend on it, and they don't want to go back and be re-educated. You know, so they very strongly resist anything that isn't their system, so to speak. You know, but and they will tend to lend that attitude of closed-mindedness to their own students. And you know, if you're in a place where there's not a lot of people working like this, I highly recommend that you send them to our website, that you send them to the books that I recommend, so that you can see that some of the best minds in the world today are working on this work, and we're now proving it, as Gerd Hirschman has done with his scientific studies. There's nothing new about what I'm teaching you here at all. It's all been known for years and years and years and years, hundreds of years to be exact. But we get away with it. We get the horse show ring. People have been allowed to pass through the ranks with hollow horses that should never have been able to go up the ranks, and then they become trainers and they teach the same system to their students. This is what's unfortunate about the whole horse world today. So what we're hoping to do with this video site is to help people like yourselves and other people around the world learn from people like yourselves, as they can see their horses developing and working beautifully over their top lines, and realize that just because someone talks with a stern voice doesn't mean they actually know what they're talking about. I see many trainers today tell people that, oh, don't get on, don't read books and don't listen to anybody else but me. You got to open your mind and get real knowledge. Once again, this walk is getting better now. Even though she's not stretching deeply into it, the walk is still active behind. It needs to just be a little bit deeper yet, but it's getting there really nicely. But before, she had a little tension in the reins when she was up a few moments ago. But you quickly let go of that and you sent her forward. Remember that the word forward does not mean to run forward, as so many people have begun to misinterpret it. Forward means to engage forward under the body. So that's what we're looking for. So when in doubt and we lose that, just let the horse go straight forward, stretch it back in. When it's correct, you feel like the horse is lifting you up, and all of a sudden you can have, even if it's just for a few moments, that you don't do anything with the aids whatsoever. You simply let the horse move forward and relax for those moments when it's absolutely correct. So good walk work that you did there. Now see, once again, this is how she comes out, and she gets a little hollow and she gets a little fussy with the front end there, but as soon as you get her moving forward again like that, there she starts to swing a little bit more actively over her back. That's good. And also remember that when you ride out, there's no difference between riding outside, or hacking rather, and doing schoolwork. It's the same thing. You ride your horse in the same way. You take it out for a hack, you stretch it over its back. If you're going to trot it, you work it over its back like you do here. It's no difference. So again, a little slow here again. You see how she's pulling her neck back a little bit. So once again, we need to get her moving in that little bigger trot that I think you were giving me when you were there. You go like that. Now that's much more like it. See how she begins to track up, and also the neck begins to get longer. So it always starts from behind. You feel that impulse from your leg go forward. I love how nice and quiet. You're a really nice quiet rider. and you know you have a good position, everything's going there fantastically. You have all the skills necessary. You just need a little more knowledge to school a horse into the upper levels. And that main thing is understanding that the horse can only collect correctly when it has been trained correctly. That is, has been developed correctly. And it doesn't matter how old they are. If your horse is 9 years old, it doesn't matter. If whether they're 20, I've done this with 27-year-old horses and brought them back from being completely sway back. So if I can do it with one for 27, you can certainly do it with this one at 9. Really good. And once again, the canter here is good enough. She canters well enough over her back. Now she got a little hollow in that downward transition, but I like how you didn't make a big deal of that. And short periods of canter like that. Now the canter, she canters well enough that you can canter with success, so that's what we want. Remember, there's just no point in, if the horse has a hollow canter and you know feels like it's falling on his forehand, there's really no point in cantering it. You just have to wait till it builds enough strength when you can. Like the Spanish riding school, if you read their old manual, you know, they recommended doing nothing but walk and trot, work with a horse for a full year before you canter. Then you start to canter and you got a horse that's working over its back and it can canter correctly. So there's just no point in doing anything incorrectly. But you have done very little here incorrectly today. This has been an excellent exemplary video. I just love seeing these videos where people are doing this with nothing but watching our website and realizing that they can train your own horses. So training horses only becomes difficult if you make it difficult for the horse. You know, and many trainers, people ask me this, my trainer, well, they can stay up, they can get the job done. Well, as I say, it takes a lot of skill and talent to ride badly, you know, to browbeat horses into phony frames. We see it all the time. People buy horses and put them in training with people, and they could ride them when they bought them, and a month later they can't ride them at all because the trainer has got them so jacked up and against the hands that there's no way, you know, a intermediate or beginner rider is going to be able to get on and do that same kind of obnoxious riding. So keep to what you're doing, and this horse is going to develop absolutely beautifully. Good big trot there. Good, that's enough action. That's where you want her. Still want her a little bit lower through the neck, but this is really, really good. That's enough over the back that it will develop. But she still needs to just get a little deeper in everything, but with a short period of time you've been doing that, this, I'm sure you're going to get it deeper. So before we can come up, we have to be able to go all the way down. Good active trot here. Once again, all I'd like to see is a little bit lower through the head and neck, but it's really quite good. I love how you're never shortening the neck back into the body. And once again, the canter on this side. Pretty good, not bad. Good enough that you can canter her with some success. I would keep it to small periods of cantering for the time being until she gets a little bit rounder. Remember, we ultimately want to be able to stretch the horse in all 3 gaits. But this canter is good enough to do it, you know, and not be damaging the horse, so that's what you want. So you can work this horse in all 3 gaits. And I love how you're keeping it just nice, big, wide turns. You know, if you don't ask for things the horses can't do, usually they're more than willing to do them. And once they learn that we're going to be a partner in this, instead of just coming out and trying to force them to do everything they do, they become really willing to work and become much better as, if you want to call it friends, as pets. You know, there's no reason why a horse can't be your friend and be ridden at the same time. Great work today. Look forward to seeing your next one. This is Will Faerber from Art to Ride. Keep up the great work and you're going to get there with this horse. Looks absolutely lovely. See you next time.